Boys, are ready? This week's parasha is Parashat Eikev. Right, as we know, as it famously starts, והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה, ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם, ושמר השם אלוקיך, לך את הברית ואת החסד אשר נשבע לאבותיך. This pasuk translates, and it was, because you hearkened, you listened to the words, to the ordinances, the laws of Hashem, that Hashem, and you did them, and you remembered them, and you held them to do them, that Hashem remembered the covenant that He made with your forefathers, and the mercy that He had with the forefathers to give you the blessing, and it continues on to talk about the blessing, and it's going to bless your land, and it's going to love you, and it's going to give you blessing to your fish, and to your crop, and to your wife's children, everything. We see all the blessings that a person is going to hearken to the words of Hashem. That's the way the word Eikev, and that's the way the pasuk is called Eikev. The way Uncle's translated as hearken, as listen. However, Rashi says, Eikev, really, the word, what does the word Eikev mean? As we know, Yaakov Avinu, the forefather, why did they call him Yaakov? Because when he was a twin. Him and Esav were born at the same time. And Esav came out first, but really Yaakov was supposed to come out first. So what did he do? He grabbed him by the Eikev, he grabbed him by the heel, and as they were coming out, Esav came out, and you can imagine, a big red hairy baby, and then behind him you see a little tiny hand holding on to his foot. So they said, given that he was holding on to the Eikev, to the heel of his brother, we're going to call him Yaakov, which is the same word Eikev with the Yud in front. Yaakov. That's where the name Yaakov came. And we know that later on his name was changed to Israel. Why was it changed to Israel? Because up until that point, he still had the word Eikev, the word Yaakov had the word Eikev in it, so therefore Esav still had power over him. And when he was doing the fighting between the Malach, when he went back to get the Shem, and he was fighting with the Malach, he says, change your name to Israel, and I won't have shlita over you anymore. I won't have power over you anymore, because you don't have this name. But we see the word Eikev means heel. Now Rashi says famously on this pasuk, what does this mean, heel? What does it come to teach us? Says, what is the pasuk talking about, that if you will hearken, if you will listen to the mitzvot of Hashem? It's talking about davka, it's talking about specifically the mitzvot that we use our heel to brush them aside. The ones that are regular, the ones that are everyday, the ones that are ordained, the ones we see all the time, praying shacharit, making brachot, all these things. He says this is the Eikev. You hear about them like, you brush them aside with your Eikev, with your heel. You kind of you brush them aside. So these specifically are the laws and the ordinances a person needs to keep in order to get these kind of blessings. Because these things have the greatest impact. These things, the small little details that a person does, have the greatest impact in everything he does in his life. Not the big things. The big things are also great, but it's the little things that we generally tend to skip over, we tend to overlook as we're looking towards the big things. Those are the things that actually count. That's what Rashi is coming and telling us. And he says, this is what a person was going to get. With that, he's going to get the reward on the highest level. But there's a she'ela on this. I gave you a little bit of an interlude to this. I said, okay, what kind of mitzvot is he talking about? But when he says the mitzvot that we usually brush off with our heel, what is he talking about? He didn't give a pirush on that. He didn't say, this is the mitzvah I'm talking about. So what's interesting, in this parasha, in the 10th chapter of this parasha, in the 12th verse, the pasuk says like this, Va'ata, and now, Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha sho'el me'emach, ki im le'ira Hashem Elokecha. Now Israel, now the nation of Israel, what is God asking from you? He's asking you only to have Yirat Hashem, to fear God, to fear Him. What does it mean to fear? To acknowledge. To acknowledge that Hashem exists. To have a constant acknowledgement that Hashem is with you. Have Yirah of Hashem. That's what Hashem is asking from you. And we know the Gemara in Masechet Menachot, Daf Mem Gimel Amud Bet. The 43 page in the second Amud over there says, don't read Ma, Ela Me'ah. Don't read what? Rather read 100. And from there we derive that a person is obligated to say 100 Brachot Hayom. Now, where do we see that a person is obligated to say 100 Brachot Hayom? We know Shulchan Aruch brings it down. We know Chamavada brings it down. But where do we see it originally comes from? So we famously know the story of David HaMelech. That in his time, there was a plague that struck the land. And this plague was killing 100 people every single day. Every single day, 100 people. They came to David HaMelech, what are we going to do? He says, you want to be able to save these people? Everybody take it upon themselves to say 100 Brachot Bayom. To say 100 Brachot every single day. But with kavanah, to do it the right way. And if you do that, we'll save. And exactly as you said, people did, and exactly as it happened, was that whenever they made the brachot, they all took it upon themselves for 100, the plague stopped. From there we see where the 100 originally came from David HaMelech himself. From the time of David HaMelech, how far back does the 100 brachot the day starts from? And also, this is funny, because Avi could tell you, this week we're just talking about it. Tzaddik, the word tzaddik, also hinting in that word. What's a person who's a tzaddik? A person who's a righteous person. What is he? He's a tzaddik. What's the difference between a tzaddik and a chassid? What's the difference? A tzaddik is a person who does everything to the letter of the law. Whatever the law says, I do. As we see, as is in the word of tzaddik. What's the word tzaddik? Tzaddik, 90. 90 is what? 90 amenim. Dalet is 4. 4 Kedushot. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. We do 4 times a day. Yud, 10. 10, huh? Amen, Yeh Shemeh Rabbah. 10 times you say Amen, Yeh Shemeh Rabbah in Kaddish. And Kuf is 100. 100 what? 100 brachot bayom. We see again, it's in order to from the word tzaddik also, not only from David HaMelech. Not only that, it's a machloket between the Chida and Chacham Ovadia. Chida says, it's yafeh if a person does 100 brachot bayom, but not chiyuv. Comes Chacham Ovadia and says, no, chiyuv. Shulchan Aruch also writes like this. The two seems to have a different opinion. But Shulchan Aruch also holds like this. The Chacham Ovadia also holds like this. And the Rambam writes on this, that it's one of the 613 mitzvot. We see ad kedei kach how important it is that a person is going to say 100 brachot bayom. Now, everyone who's sitting over here, what do you think to yourself? What's the importance of saying 100 brachot bayom? What difference does it make if it's 99, if it's 98, or if it's 100, 101? What does it make a difference how many brachot bayom a day? What does it make a difference? What's this that I have to be so diligent to make 100 brachot bayom? So this connection, we want to know, what's the connection between saying brachot and having fear of God? Because the pasuk says, don't read ma ela me'ah. Don't read what? Ela read 100. And right after it says Hashem is asking from you that you have fear of God. What's fear of God? 100 brachot bayom. And how does that connect? How do we see those two things have a connection between the two, one another? Baruch Hashem, I was okay that I was reading a book today of Rav Steinbaum. He writes, it's Peninim al Torah. This is the book he writes over there. And he writes over there, in the name of Harav Yaakov Bifus. He writes over there a story. And he gives an analogy on how exactly this, what we're talking about, the 100 brachot, how it makes sense, that how does it connect with fear of God, with acknowledgement of God? It says a story of a city in Europe, back then, ancient times. No cars, beautiful city, was suburban, far away from all the large cities. Everyone over there was happy. As you know, back then, how did people used to make their money? One guy was the guy who did the crops, one guy was the butcher, one guy did the haircuts, one guy, we had a guy for everything. One guy at the smoke shop, one guy for we had one guy for everything. We didn't have one guy at the cash advance, you believe it? All the way back then, huh? You don't believe they had home warranties too? You don't believe it. They were the iron. That's crazy. Long story short, we see the city was prosperous. It was living a good life, and in the middle of the city, they had a road, a pass-through road that everyone would use. They go with the horse and buggy as they're going down the road with the horse and the buggy, and they're riding. Chazak u'baruch, everything's nice. Everyone's enjoying. Then comes Henry Ford and says, "You know what? I got an idea. Let's invent a car. Invent a car. What happens now? The road gets a little busier. Sees cars are coming by. People who are living in the town, their kids are used to running freely in the streets. Now there's cars coming by, but the cars back then, they didn't have the ability to go like the cars today. They were just, 15, 20, 30. How fast could they actually go? They were heavy. They were all made from metal. They were slow. If you go take a car from 1980, go take a car now from 1970, the car is extremely heavy. You cannot. There's no 0 to 62.8 seconds. There's no such a thing. 0 to 60 is a minute and a half if you're lucky. Now, the cars barely move. Okay, not the end of the world. We still can live. We can still enjoy. Then comes, fast forward to modern times, that this road became a pass-through to a highway that was taken to the main city. And obviously we know faster cars were introduced into the world. And you know who hears about this road now? He wants to drive down to the big city. Who hears about it? Some guy from the next neighborhood who has a E40,000 whatever, BMW 1986 M3. The one that's all the way to the ground with the deleted muffler. As soon as he passes through the neighborhood, he presses the brakes. All of a sudden, you hear shotguns in the back. You're sleeping in the middle of the night. You woke up. What's going on? The guy comes through with the M3, making noise in the middle of the night, driving like a maniac. What's going on over here? The kids are waking up. People are going crazy. They don't know what to do. They have a meeting. Everybody gets together. So what are we going to do? How are we going to stop this maniac in the M3? They say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to add speed bumps. Oh, that was a good idea. So the next day they made speed bumps. The next day all of a sudden they hear coming through the neighborhood. All of a sudden he comes zooming fast, and you see the car clip, the whole bumper breaks, sitting on the floor, the guy sitting over there, and everyone in the neighborhood comes out laughing. He says, we got him. Says over here the Rav, says, you know what the brachot is? It's the speed bumps in the road. sometimes in life, we're going through life very, very quickly. We're moving fast, moving fast, moving fast. We don't need to remember to slow down. To slow down to what? To remember that Hashem is above us. The Rama writes in the beginning of Or Chaim, Shulchan Aruch, writes over there the mitzvah of Shaviti Hashem Nagdi Tamid, that I place Hashem before me in all times, as we spoke last week. This mitzvah, he said, this is a virtue that a person needs to take with him for the rest of his life. Something that he needs to use every single day of his life. Something that needs to be the beginning of how he starts everything. And says, how is he able to do that? He says the brachot that a person makes every single day, the blessing that he makes is a way to remind him that Hashem is above him, that Hashem is constantly above him. And when he does, is as he's moving through life, he's going through work, he's moving around, he's going through the city, he's doing everything he needs to do. It's easy for him to forget. It's easy for him to forget that Hashem is above him, that Hashem is in control of everything. So what did they come to Chachamim? What did the Bnei Melech come and say? 100 brachot a day. You know why? What are these brachot? Every bracha and bracha is another conversation with Hashem. Every blessing that you make is another reminder of Hashem is with us. So if you're trying to get 100, all day you're making brachot because you have to get to the 100. So all day you're involved with Hashem. All day you're reminded that Hashem is there. All day you're reminded that there's one above you. There's one that's always above you. I heard a story, a beautiful story that illustrates the point, maybe not as sentimental, but there was a father and a daughter who loved each other very, very much. Very, very much. And the daughter gets older and all her friends go away to sleepaway camp. As a kid, you know how it is. When the girl turns 12 years old, Abba, everyone's going away to Ozone, I don't know, all these places, yeah? I want to go. So Abba says, okay, well, for my daughter, anything. Oh, it's going to hurt me, you're gone. She says, yeah, but it's going to hurt me to be away from you too. What am I going to do? All my friends are going. He says, okay, I'll send you. They get the money, they pay, they get everything, they're preparing the bags, they're preparing the snacks. As the Abba is leaving, he starts to think to himself, I don't want my daughter to forget me. When she's over there, she's going to be having fun with her friends, she's going to be out, she's going to be living the life. 2-3 months away from Abba. She might forget me. She might forget the bond that we have with each other. So he tells her, listen, I packed in your bag 1,000 tea light candles. What's the connection? So I want when you come home every single night, just light a candle to remember your father. One candle, just to remember that your father has a home and he's waiting for you and he's thinking about you. And I light a candle too. Comes Hashem and says, I want you to remember me. You're going through life, you're busy with work, you're busy with everything you're doing. I want you to remember me. Light a candle, say a bracha. That's your way of showing Hashem, even though everything is going on right now, even though I'm in camp, even though I'm enjoying myself, even though I'm out and I'm about, I'm saying a bracha and it's reminding me that Hashem is at home waiting for me. That Hashem is already in Olam Haba, and when Mashiach Tzidkenu is going to come, Beit HaMikdash Shlishi, the third Beit HaMikdash, Hashem is waiting for us to come home. That's me remembering that Hashem is out there waiting for us. This is what a bracha is. What's the koach of a bracha? A person will understand how much you can do with a bracha, how much you can change with a bracha. We know that he changes the composition of the food. You know, Rav Zemir Cohen came out with a book, Torah v'Mada. It's called Torah and Science. And over there he shows the molecules of water. He shows two studies. One study of a plant. This was done and conducted in China or Japan. I don't remember exactly which one. And when she took two plants, two ferns, they put them in a room. And they started, one room, they set it over there in that room, cursing, klalot, inyanim. The other room, only nice things. What a beautiful plant, such a beautiful plant, such a beautiful plant. They came back after a month. The one with the klalot in the room came out of kum. There's pictures of it. Came out of kum, came out crooked, half slanted, barely walking, barely moving. And the other one blossomed beautifully. Not only that, they did a study on water. Took water, they took the molecules under the microscope. And then they made the bracha on the water. And they showed that the molecules under the microscope, they changed shapes. They became like a crystallized shape. Yeah, you can see it's real. This is real. Go to the book Torah Mada. If you guys want to do Shul Neder, if you want to remind me next week, I'll bring the book. I'll pull out the pictures before the class, and we'll show these pictures. It's a real. This is a book that's famous around the world. Rav Zemir Cohen. I remember I was zocher. I'm zocher to have a good relationship with Rav Zemir, and I'm me and my brother very close. So when he came over here to do an event, I went around to Long Island. I went around to other places with him. The rabbi was doing events, fundraisers in Yanim. And what tafkid they gave me, as you could tell, the salesman. They told me, "Yalla, go to the books." So I was standing over there with the books, and you have stacks of books over there. You have different types of beautiful books. I'm looking every book I'm looking at. I'm saying, "Wow, what a nice book!" Torah, Hidden Treasures, Secret to Sex of a Marriage, in the name. And right over there, a gigantic stack of Torah and Madat, Torah and science. What do you think the hottest seller in the room was? Torah and Madat, Torah and science, and Shalom Bayit. That's the two major points of how to have peace in the home between the husband and the wife. Those two were the major sellers. Those two are the major sellers. Kevin, the people now in our dor, in our generation, you have a lot of people who think that science is against the Torah, right? They think if I believe in science, I believe then it's against Torah. Then it's against everything I believe, right? I believe in science. I believe the world was created science, and then Torah is against that. That was the stigma. Came Rav Zamir and said, "That's what you think? I'm going to make a whole book dedicated," and he didn't only make one, he made many. "I'm going to make a whole book dedicated to prove to you that science proves Torah." That's exactly what he did. People from all over the world hear about this book, and they're yearning to understand what he wrote down in this book. And if you read this book, it's something that you cannot forget. You sit down and you read things that just, everything clicks, everything. He goes through astrology. I never met a Gaon like that in my life, who knows every aspect of life. You meet a Gaon, you meet a person who's a giant in Chokhmah, in knowing things, you think, okay, he's a Chokhmah in Torah. He knows all the Chelkei Shulchan Aruch, he knows all the Poskim, he knows everything about the Torah. Comes the Rav Zamir and says, not only do I know everything about the Torah, I also know everything about science. I also know everything about astrology. I learned all the languages of the world, I learned in order to prove the Torah still. That the Torah is the one, is the Ikar. Baruch Hashem, he was okay to do that. What's one of the reasons he became as big as he is? Baruch Hashem, I met the person. I met. Rav Zamir is something, a malach. You see him, you meet him, you just know he's an angel. Nothing you can do about it. Now we see, from his book we see that the words have koach. When a person speaks, when he says a bracha, when he's sitting down and he's having a bracha on something, he's changing the molecules on what he's about to eat. We know obviously kosher shchita, we know that a person comes to eat kosher meat. How much of ashpah it has on him? Why? What's the dinim of kosher meat? The knife has to be sharp. That if I would just, you never had, when I just do like this to the knife, it would cut me. That's how sharp it has to be. Now I ask you guys over here, sitting over here, whenever you were a kid in school, you ever got a paper cut? But now you got a paper cut, no? Did you feel it right away? Or it takes a couple of seconds till you feel the paper cut? It takes a couple of seconds till you feel the paper cut. Comes and says, if you want to do shechita on an animal, the knife has to be so sharp that when the incision is done, it's like that of a paper cut. And why is that relevant? So that the nervous system doesn't pick up on the pain till much later. Now, all kosher animals, they chew their cud and they have split hooves, right? What's the connection? Every animal that's kosher, that chews its cud and has split hooves, has two main arteries in the front of the neck, the jugular and the main the lungs, the breathway. Comes in the windpipe. Whenever you make that first incision, you disconnect both, and the animal dies instantaneously. No nerve pathogens can be sent to the brain anymore, and no pain receptors. And why is that relevant? Another deen that comes to the shechita, that if another animal sees another animal being shochet ayom, you cannot be shochet that animal today. Take him out, go him back. If he sees another one being shochet, you can't do it today. It has to be done in Sinai. You take him out quietly, bring him to the room. He's not supposed to know what's going on. It's done. Why? You want to minimize the amount of, you don't want to have any suffering from the animal. That's for that. Huh? Hide the knife. Akol. They do everything so the animal doesn't have any type of fear. We don't want to have any type of suffering from the animal. And on that, we see that we want kama sheyoter that there's not going to be any pain. Why? No pain to the animal when we do the incision. Why? Anyone over here who's ever been in a situation where where his adrenaline was rushing, or he felt fear, or he felt afraid. What happens now? All these chemicals going through your body. You have endorphins, you have adrenaline running through your body. Now what happens is you just shochet the meat, you take the meat, you put it on the butcher shelf, and if someone goes eats it, they eat the dam of the animal, and that dam comes into them, becomes their dam, and that adrenaline, those feelings, and they become hyper, they become moving, they become like that, anxious, anxiety, people like that.
It's a stress hormone.
Stress hormone. Cortisol?
Yeah.
Cortisol. Baruch Hashem, we have Tomer with us. Twice in a week, you got a shot at Tomer. I got to start paying for these. Okay? Chazaku Baruch. You see, these things make a big hashpah on Ben Adam. And how much kama v'kama, even more so, that when you make a bracha, you change the composition of the food. Even that we went the extra step to say, okay, we don't want the animal to have any pain, we don't want any cortisol, we don't want any adrenaline, we don't want any endorphin running through the system. We're also going to make you say a bracha that any of the molecules that are inside the food are going to be changed. And not only that, one step further, we know that when you make a bracha, everything in life, there's an nitzotz in it. There's a certain type of spark of nishamot in the world, and the art of kidim, and our jobs in the world is to pick up those little sparks. So when you make a bracha, you're picking up these sparks. Brachot is the ikar, is the main essence of a person, how much he has to be makpid in these things, because these are the things that remind him of Hashem, that keep him close to Hashem. We're going to finish with this. In this week's parasha, Dafka, we know, there's only one bracha that's from the Torah. Every other bracha was institution of the Rabbanan, was the institution of the sages, but there's one that's from the Torah. V'achalta v'savata v'barachta. You ate, you were satiated, and you blessed Hashem. And from there the Chachamim learn that Birkat HaMazon, the first three blessings, are mitzvah from the Torah itself. Birkat HaMazon. Now why is this relevant? This week's parasha we hear about it. That's for this week's parasha. Right after it goes, giving shebach, giving praise to the land of Eretz Yisrael, and how great it is, and how it expands from this land to this land, and how prosperous the land is, it says, and if you ate, and you were satiated, and you blessed your God. Why? We know famously Birkat HaMazon, anyone who's been around, knows that Birkat HaMazon, they always say, they are sold to Parnasah. It's the secret to livelihood, right? They always say, a person who prays Parnasah, prays Birkat HaMazon with attention, so he has a guarantee he's going to become wealthy. Maaser is one of them, also Birkat HaMazon, right? And a guarantee he's going to become wealthy. Birkat HaMazon is the essence of livelihood. What's so important about Birkat HaMazon? Comes and says, Birkat HaMazon is the acknowledgement that one is above you. What are you doing when you do Birkat HaMazon? You're acknowledging that there's a creator to the world. That's someone who put this food on your table. So when you're going out in your day and you're working with your hands and you're toiling to make your money, when you're eating bread, when you're eating, and you become satiated, you make a bracha after to remind yourself, who's the one who put this in front of me? Yes, I worked. Yes, I did. Yes, I did that. Who's the one who put this in front of me, this food? That acknowledgement that Hashem is in front of us. That's what tirah is. That's what fearing of God is, really acknowledging that God exists. Acknowledging the one who's in control of everything that you do is in control, as we see with the Sipur of Avraham Avinu. Finish with this story. Avraham Avinu, famously, he was known. He was the first Jew in the world. He found Hashem, as we know his famous story. What would he do? He'd bring people to his house. He would be shochet, the best meat in the whole entire world. A dinner for kings. And after you ate, he would hand you mayim achonim, he hand you a little bit of mayim to finish, wash your hands, mayim achonim, and he hand you a bencher. Say, yalla, pray Birkat HaMazon. Doesn't matter who you were. Go and not Birkat HaMazon. Why? So we know famously that anyone who does kiruv, what do they tell people? Bring people around the Su'udah and have them pray Birkat HaMazon. Because Birkat HaMazon has the ability to be mashpia on a person, has the influence on a person of acknowledgement of God, of Yirat Hashem. We see from Avraham Avinu. It says a story that once was a king who came to eat. A man who came to eat at Moshe Rabbeinu. At Avraham Avinu. Came to sit down and eat. He opened in front of him a meal. At the end, Avraham Avinu came to him and tells him, listen, you ate. I'm happy you enjoyed it. Here's the mayim achonim. Here's the venture. Wash and pray and bless. The guy tells him, listen, it's not for me. Thank you very much. I'm going to be heading on my way. Avraham Avinu says, oh yeah, that's the case? 1 minute. He goes outside, pulls out a bill, hands him the bill. Says, okay. Guy looks at the bill, $5 million. He said, what did I eat over here? It's like, oh, we ate some meat and some bread. What $5 million? What are you talking about? He says, no, if you don't want to make a bracha that someone else is in charge of the food, then not only you owe me on the food you ate, you owe me for the food that everyone came to my house, because you're saying that you're the king of the world. You provide sustenance to everybody, so therefore, if you provide sustenance to everybody, pay for everyone who's ever been to my house. $5 million. The guy said, okay, give me the venture. Give me the venture. And he prayed. We see that brachot, that's the acknowledgement of Hashem. When a person acknowledges that Hashem is in life, that's the secret. The secret to success is acknowledging that Hashem is in charge of everything that happens to us. Everything that happens to you in your life as you're going through your day, to remember to slow down on the speed bumps, to slow down and say, okay, I have a bracha now. I have one friend, God bless him. Every time I say a bracha, I see him, some people, they say a bracha and two seconds, and you don't even know what they're talking about. I have one friend, he comes, Hashem should bless him, he comes, he goes, Baruch atah. Stops between atah. Hey, look, he says the words, I'm not going to say them because it's a bracha. And he stops every time. Amunai, Elokeinu, Melech, he says a bracha. Every time. 100 times a day, this is how he says a bracha. Every time he's about to eat something, every time he's about to drink something. And he's thinking about, wow, this water that I'm about to drink. Imagine, this water that I'm about to drink, Hashem gave it to me. This French fries that I'm about to drink, this wrap that has the kavanah, he's remembering. That's the secret. That's tzlacha in everything we do. Acknowledging the brachot is the acknowledgement, is the speed bumps on the way that slows down and say, remember, there's one above, there's one in charge of everything that happens to us in our life. Chazak u'baruch. Elu nishmat, we say every word that we said over here, Mechila, that I said it before the shiur. Mechila we didn't mention, Elu nishmat Chana bat Rachel, and Rivka bat Shoshana.